Hi. So now we're entering phase 2 of the treatment of Hashimoto's. Again, phase 1 ended with having a lab test showing that the person's antibodies, thyroid antibodies, are down in that normal range. During that time, that first phase, we were doing a number of other things, one of which was priming the thyroid gland with those nutrients it needs in order to start the production of thyroid hormones. The only nutrient lacking was iodide, and that's what this presentation is about. How to introduce iodide in a way that will not cause too quick of an improvement or increase in TSH, and therefore not an increase in the inflammation or the thyroid antibodies. So now we've entered into phase 2, and phase 2, the crossing over from phase 1 to phase 2 is when your thyroid antibodies have come down and they're now in that normal range. And now it's time to reintroduce iodide and iodine. This is the primary focus of this first part of phase 2. So when you introduce iodide and iodine, what's going to happen? What's going to take place inside the body? We know that iodide and iodine will increase the production of TSH. That's one thing that's going to happen. We also know that because in the first phase we were taking selenium and zinc and possibly iron, and that the thyroid is primed and ready, the introduction of iodide is going to be that missing ingredient that now the thyroid cells will have to start producing their own thyroid hormones. And with the increase of TSH from the iodide and iodine, there may be an increase in hydrogen peroxide production. I'm sure there will be, because that transformation of iodide to iodine does require hydrogen peroxide production by the cells, but it's not going to be that great. Plus, there will be plenty of selenium to prevent or to reduce that excess inflammation. But we still want to increase levels of iodide and iodine slowly, in a specific way. We're going to use liquid, which is the easiest one to kind of regulate or to measure. We'll use a product which we also provide called Lugol's. It's actually called Lugol's Plus 2%. And with this product, one vertical drop, when you hold that dropper vertically rather than horizontally, one vertical drop equals 2.5 milligrams of the combination of iodide and iodine. So we must dilute it. That's far too much to start with. The starting dose in the second phase is going to be 250 micrograms, or 1/4 milligram of the combination. So what we're going to do is take 2 drops of that Lugol's 2% and dilute it with 20 tablespoons of pure water, so that 1 tablespoon of that mixture will equal 250 micrograms. So days 1 through 4, days 1, 2, 3, and 4, it'll be 1 tablespoon per day. Days 5 through 8, 2 tablespoons. Days 9 through 12, 3 tablespoons. Days 13 through 16, 4 tablespoons. So each day we're increasing the amount of iodide and iodine until finally we come to the point of 12 tablespoons a day. And this equals 3 milligrams. So it's taken a month from start to finish until you're finally at 3 milligrams. And this is a safe dose of iodide and iodine. And you'll stay on this dose for 2 more weeks. And then we'll do some lab testing. We want to find out a few things with lab testing. One is, how much TSH is the pituitary making now? How much T4 is the thyroid making now? And to some extent, well, and also we want to know about your antibodies, see if they've increased. So this is what usually happens. Here it is, the beginning of phase 2. Antibodies are down. The person's on the full dose of the thyroid prescription, there is some TSH being produced and a little bit of endogenous thyroid hormones also being produced. The thyroid again is primed, and we increase iodide. So TSH increases from the iodide and iodine, and with that, even though the person's still on a full dose, their endogenous production of thyroid hormones will start to increase because of the elevated or increased TSH and because of the added iodide. So sometimes, in fact it's a very good sign, that the person starts to feel as if they have too much thyroid hormones because they're making thyroid hormones now and they're also still on their full dose. We doubt very much if a person's going to go into full-blown hyperthyroidism, but they will probably experience, the first symptom would be an increase in their heart rate. We always ask people to monitor their heart rate when they're lying down about ready to fall to sleep. That's a resting heart rate, and if it starts increasing, like more than 10 points or 15 points, then it's time to take a little action. I'll explain that in just a moment. They'll also maybe feel more restless and maybe just feel like they've got a little bit of jittery, too much energy. So we ask them to monitor their heart rate. So here we are back again with a little bit high TSH and a little bit of the endogenous production, which will go up with the stimulation of TSH. If there's an increase in heart rate, we want to lower the thyroid prescription. You can always stop the Lugol's, but remember, it's a good sign. If this happens, it means your thyroid is kicking in and beginning to produce its hormones. During this first 4 to 6 weeks of this phase 2, as we reintroduce iodide and iodine, we don't do any lab testing. It's all done through self-monitoring. To explain a bit more about this, before the 1960s, physicians who were treating thyroid issues such as hypothyroidism didn't really have any lab testing. It wasn't until 1962 that the first thyroid lab test for TSH was introduced, and really even that was not enough for clinicians to properly assess thyroid hormone levels, just because the T4 and T3 are also really important. So before that, they would give the recommended dose based upon weight and gender, and have them pretty much monitor one primary symptom, which was heart rate. The heart is extremely sensitive when there's too much circulating thyroid hormones. Ask anyone with hyperthyroidism with their heart rate up in the 80s and 90s and 100s. So during that first phase, that's the primary way of monitoring when it's time to reduce the thyroid medication, as the thyroid starts to produce more of its own hormones. But at the end of 4 to 6 weeks, it is time to do some lab tests for a couple of reasons, which is explained in the next video.